While it lacks the sex appeal of swordplay or archery, plant knowledge is one of the most important survival skills. Knowing your plants and trees is key, whether you're building a shelter, starting a fire, or securing a meal. But before you go out gathering handfuls of mysterious blue berries, it's important to know which plants not to eat. Today we're going to look at some of Ontario's deadliest plants. And no, we won't be covering devil's snare or piranha plant. If you're a Hunger Games fan, you'll probably recognize the name Nightlock. Eating Nightlock berries is how Foxface dies after stealing them from PETA, who unknowingly collects the wrong berry. Later, PETA and Katniss threaten to eat Nightlock berries to force the game maker's hands into freeing them both. The name Nightlock probably originates from two real poisonous plants growing right here in Toronto and throughout North America, Nightshade and Hemlock. This is herbalist and forager Nikki Satira. She's had 10 years of experience with wild edible and medicinal plants right here in Toronto.
Let's go check out some plants. Let's do it!
So what do we have here?
This is poison hemlock. So you can tell it's poison hemlock by several different flower heads. They've already released their seeds, so you can't really see the seeds in it anymore. But in the summer, the stem would actually have purple spotting or blotching down it. There would be several white, tiny flowers coming out in an umbel, which is kind of like an umbrella shape. You can also see that the little stem here is wrapping around the main stem, kind of like a scarf. And that's another identifying factor.
So are you talking about that little brown piece hanging off?
Yeah.
So what would happen if someone were to accidentally ingest this plant?
They would have convulsions, hallucinations, complete bodily paralysis, and eventually that would lead to death. So here is a first-year plant, and you could tell how that kind of looks like carrot leaves. If you ever bought carrots in the grocery store, like you would see bunches of these little leaves. So it's really easily mistakable with wild carrot.
And is it true that this is the plant that killed Socrates at the end of his life?
Socrates was actually sentenced to death, and he had to choose between exile or poison hemlock death. And he chose death by poison hemlock.
Tough choice.
Not a good way to go. So remember Nightlock from the Hunger Games, and we looked at the lock part, which was poison hemlock. Now we're going to look at the night part, which is nightshade. So right beside me over here we have a species of nightshade known as bittersweet nightshade, and it's characterized by the way it climbs up fences or trees, and it is said to be extremely poisonous. There's some red dangling berries on it, and every single berry has a stem sticking out of it that looks kind of like a star. It's got 5 points. And each leaf has lobes. So if you imagine an earlobe, that's kind of what we mean in the plant world when we say lobes. The berries start as green, and then they gradually go to orange, and then they go to red. So when I was a kid, I remember that my mom told me never to eat bright red berries. And when I was younger, I actually had a plant of nightshade in my backyard, and I ate some berries because they looked delicious, and I got really sick. They say symptoms of poisoning from nightshade are convulsions and hallucinations and upset stomach, delirium, drooling, and comas. So these are just a few of Ontario's most deadly plants. There are hundreds of plants out there that can kill you or feed you depending on what you eat and what you find.
If only Katniss had spent a little more time with her nose in a field guide, she might have had an easier time in the arena. Despite what you've seen in the movies, real survival skills take time and dedication to master. Pick up a wild edible plant guide, and it could just save your neck in the woods. Whatever you do, don't end up like Socrates or Seneca Crane at the end of the 74th Hunger Games, choosing between death by starvation or death by eating a deadly plant.